Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to another CAHN Healthy Hearts session. So, if you're just joining us for the first time, if this is your first time ever joining us, this is a session where there's a session we have every Tuesday where we discuss nutritional and health talks, and where we also share tips and guidance on how to live a healthy lifestyle. So, last week, we had a very beautiful topic, which was dietary challenges, where our guest speaker discussed and explained different challenges that are possible for us to face while trying to have a good diet. And she also showed us some statistics about how people who have moved over to the UK, how we're struggling with our diets and things like that. And also something very important I learned from last week's topic was the salt intake, how we tend to consume high amount of salt. So because of that, we decided that, you know what, the topic was just too good to end last week. So we decided to have another session and talk more about addressing socio-cultural influences on our diet. So we have Dr. Hibbah, who's our guest speaker, and she's going to take us through that. We're just going to have a discussion briefly. So today's session is going to be more of a discussion. We're going to talk about things and just have a chat. Over to you, Dr. Hibbah.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, and thank you everyone for joining today. Good evening. Now, last week, as Sylvia rightly said, we were looking at some of the challenges we face, some of the mistakes we make as people of African and Caribbean origin. And I couldn't go through all the stuff I wanted to talk about. So I said we're going to do the rest today. And then we can afterwards look at ways to address some of these challenges, particularly focusing on social and cultural factors. So, just as a recap, because I said I wasn't going to share slides today, but just to set the scene, can we just recap the main challenges we identified last week? So what were the mistakes that we talked about? Mistakes we commonly make when it comes to our diets as people of African and Caribbean origin. What were some of the things we highlighted?
Well, I'm going to go first because I picked one. It was the salt for me. It was the salt intake for me, And because of that, over the week, I have been very cautious when cooking my food, especially rice and pasta, because I remember most people did mention that they don't put salt in that. So I've stopped doing that, basically.
Not most people, Sylvia. It was just a handful of people. It was just one person who said she was from northern Africa, who said they don't usually put salt in their rice. And that came as a surprise to me because I know West Africans and a lot of people I know would definitely put salt in the stuff they are preparing. But thank you for sharing that. And thank you for trying to make some modifications already. Thank you so much. Okay, let's look in the chat box and see what we have in there. So yes, having too much proteins on our plates. Yes, we did say that as well. Any other? Were they the only two challenges we mentioned? Can anyone remember anything we discussed as a challenge? If not, then, we probably didn't talk about it last week. We can still talk about it. So what are some of the mistakes you think we make when it comes to our diet? And we all know the mistakes we make. It's not new. We talk about these things all the time. So apart from the high salt intake and having too much animal proteins, to be specific, so it's too much meat, what else do we tend to do as Black people?
We did speak about the portion sizes, but if it looks like everyone was already aware that portion size, we need to pay attention to our portion size,
as well. Okay, so yes, we talked about portion sizes as well. Okay, let me just show one slide. I kind of summarized, and I'll come back to, well, I don't have to show it. I can just talk about it. So we talked about large portion sizes. We talked about animal protein intake being excess. When it comes to cooking, What are some of our issues? What do we tend to do? And please, host, this is not to you this time around. What are some of the dietary challenges or mistakes we make when we are cooking? Too much, not enough fish in our diets. Yes, too much meat. Thank you, Martha. That's a correct one. Anything else to do with the stuff we cook with? Thank you. Too much oil. That's what I was waiting for. We tend to have too much oil when we are cooking. Thank you. One other important thing to do with the cooking process. One other thing we tend to do a lot of, Martha says too much fizzy drinks. Thank you. That's also a good point. One of the challenges we face, fizzy drinks and even alcohol as well. Thank you for that. Overcooking. Thank you so much. Overcooking. So we tend to cook for hours. So even if we are having vegetables, we will cook the vegetables for 1 hour, and at the end of the day, we really don't have much micronutrients, vitamins or minerals in the food that we are consuming. Thank you so much. So these are just a handful of some of our challenges. There's still a lot out there, but we're going to move on and look at some of the factors that influence these dietary behaviors. Now, our dietary practices, some people say dietary behaviors, are one of the most complex human behaviors. We have several behaviors, but when it comes to diet, as much as it looks like an everyday thing, it's determined by several factors, okay? And I'm sure you would know that, but if you look at the evidence will tell you that the way we eat is influenced by biochemical, physiological, psychological, social, educational, several factors, okay? Now, for us as African and Caribbean people, the way we eat has been shown to deeply be rooted in our culture. So our culture influences the way we eat a lot. My own study that I did in Greater Manchester showed that a lot of people I spoke to would tell you, oh, the reason why I eat the way I eat is because I'm from here and this is how we eat. So nutritional factors or health factors is the last thing we think about when we want to decide on what to eat. A lot of the times it's because it shows our identity, especially for us immigrants. So people told me that the fact that we are not home, the fact that we've migrated to a new place, eating this way connects me with my, where I come from, the people, with home. Okay, so people would keep eating fufu or eba because then that shows that they come from a particular place. Now, what I want to highlight, okay, let me show you, is some of the factors we've identified from the evidence. Okay, I keep saying I don't want to show slides, but then I'll just show some every now and then just to buttress the points I'm making. Okay, what can you see?
Yeah, I can see your slides.
Okay, you can see my slides. Okay, so this is just those mistakes I was talking about. Now let's go on to, yes, based. So why do we make such mistakes? That's the question I asked, and I looked at the evidence. So this is a systematic review. Now, a systematic review is a study that brings together so many other studies other people have conducted. So people looked at studies that have been conducted among African and Caribbean people in the UK, and I've just selected some of them. The factors are so many, but I tend to like to focus on those ones we can do something about, So we all do know that the cost of, the cost of food influences what we eat. I tend to say less about that because as a community, we might not be able to do much about the cost of food. That is like beyond that, that's at the policy level. So I would like to focus on the social and cultural factors because I know that that's within our capabilities if we really want to do something about it. So the first one is culture. What is culture? Culture is the way we live, the way we've been brought up. Okay, so it determines our values, our attitudes, our habits, our customs. When we say culture, that is what we are referring to. And it is acquired by learning from childhood. So when someone says this is my culture, you learn how to do certain things from your childhood. And most of the times, it's not like you are actually taught. So nobody consciously teaches you to do something. You just see it around you, and then you are programmed like that, because that is what everyone around you does. Okay, so that's what we mean by culture. So you internalize certain behaviors, and unconsciously it goes really deep. And that is one of the biggest factor that influences the way we do some of the stuff we do. So we are going to be looking at specific examples. Then acculturation. Acculturation is also it's related to culture. So when we migrate, the way we some of us tend to adopt the lifestyle here. So the way people eat or the way people speak, just trying to change your culture to suit another one is what we call acculturation. Another important influence is food beliefs. We all do have some beliefs. There are certain beliefs that really you listen to and you're like, and I'll give you an example. Certain rural areas in Ghana, pregnant women are asked not to eat eggs. That's a food belief. So even if people don't have money to buy any animal protein and they only have eggs around, there's some sort of a taboo that says don't eat egg. And if you go down deeper to try and understand why that is the case, really, you don't find anything that has any scientific basis. But yes, those are some of those food beliefs. We also have social networks. So the kind of people in your social network, your family, your friends, and all of us here would testify, can have a big influence on the way we eat. Okay, now let me start talking about some of these specific examples. So I'll stop sharing now. The other one has to do with socioeconomic status. So, how much money you have or how much education, all of that has been shown to influence our diets. Nutrition knowledge, again, yes, sometimes, and especially in today's era of social media, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So people kind of tap into some of these misinformation and then do. And a typical example has to do with this detox thing, so you find detox everywhere. So people would stop eating healthily and go onto a fruit diet or a vegetable diet because they think they are eating healthy. So that's an example of not having, the right nutrition information. Taste preferences. People have been programmed to like food in a certain way, to like stews with a lot of salt, and that is also linked with our upbringing, our culture, our social network. Another important factor is motivation. As we know, sometimes people know the right thing to do, but you're just not motivated to do it. That is also a huge and important factor that influences our diet, and that is responsible for some of the mistakes we make. Okay, so this is not exhaustive. There's a long list. There's so many other factors, and this is from a study, as I said, we did in 2016. Okay, I'll stop sharing and then start talking about some of these factors one by one. Let me pick one of our challenges, like portion sizes. And I'm going to throw this to the group. Why do you think culturally we tend to serve large portions of food? Has anybody given it a thought? Why is it that we tend to serve large portions of food? Who wants to give it?
I think growing up, we always used to hear, if your plate is not loaded, you're kind of not eating well. You're starving yourself. So there's that belief that when you have smaller portions in your plate, you're starving yourself, you're not eating well. Or if we go back in the days of our grandparents, they tell you your parents probably don't have enough money to give you as much food as you should have. Yeah. So big plate usually signifies wealth, kind of you're eating good, you're eating like a king, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right Yes, I've seen some. Yeah, show respect. Yes, JG, that thank you.
Yeah.
Sylvia, thank you. All those answers you gave were on point. Thank you so much. So yeah, people think you're not eating well if the plate is not big enough. That's correct. Show respect. And I'll link that to our socialization process when I get to that one. Thank you so much. Due to our big families, we are used to cooking for large groups. That is also really, really true. Correct. So it is all linked to what used to happen back in the day. So a lot of the times, so all those answers you've given are right. I'm just adding on to some of the reasons why we tend to serve large portions. So if you've lived in Africa, or if you grew up in Africa, you know that most households, and I know for my households that, you always serve with expectation that you could have an unexpected guest, so people, unlike here, where you always have to call and be sure of whether people are at home. In Africa, most of our homes, there's always someone at home. And so, people cook with the intention or, thinking we could have unexpected guests. So nobody in Africa, and I got these stories from the research that I did, so I tend to speak to a lot of African immigrants and I try to understand the reasons for the way they behave. And these are coming from some of those stories, So people will tell you that in Africa, you don't cook for your nuclear family. You don't know who is going to visit you. You don't know which uncle is coming. You don't know which auntie is coming. So a lot of the times we cook in bulk. And then as human nature, once you cook in bulk, then there's a tendency for you to serve large plates. Okay. So unconsciously, even once you've cooked in bulk, so I'm going to another layer, because once you have guests, if you don't serve, large portions, sometimes it is even judged as you not being hospitable. And I want to believe that people would relate to that. When you have guests, you cannot serve them small
portions.
No, you can't serve them small portions. Why can't you serve small portions? What will people think when you serve small portions?
Probably you never wanted them to visit you in the first place. Yeah, that's that.
That's a good point. And I see she kind of laughing. No, seriously, if you serve someone what we see as a small plate, that's, based on what we've been learning, no, it's not really a small plate. Your guests could think that you probably don't want them coming to your house anymore. That's just one. What other thoughts? What are some of our social beliefs or social behaviors and perceptions around small plates? Let's go into the chat box. Why do people serve large portions to guests? Today, as I said, I just want us to have a discussion. So,
yes, so someone.
Hello, Dr. Hibbah.
Yes, please.
Yes, I didn't raise my hand, but I'm driving. So sometimes you anticipate that the visitor shouldn't finish all the food. In Africa, in Ghana, like this, when somebody visits you, and
yes,
serve the person with small portion. Maybe the person might not eat and leave some, but there's always this anticipation that a visitor need not clear. You have to increase the food so that leaves a small portion. Then it's fine. Can you hear me? I'm driving, so it's like
you were driving, so we didn't hear the whole point you made.
Hello?
So can you? Yeah, hello, we can hear you. Can you repeat your point again? Or Sylvia, did you get the point?
I did. I got her point.
So, okay.
Yes. What I'm saying is that sometimes you got my point. Okay, all right. So you can help me with after driving again.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Slyvia. Thank you so much. Sylvia, can you?
So she's saying that basically, so there's that perception that when as a visitor you shouldn't finish your full food, you shouldn't finish your food. So if you serve the person small portion, they will be able to finish it. But if you serve large portion, they will finish it and have leftover and have a bit remaining. So
and that when that happens, then they are obeying all those etiquettes of being a good visitor. Okay.
Basically.
Okay. Thank you so much, Slyvia. Thank you so much for that point. Then there are some suggestions or in the chat box.
Someone says you don't value them. Another one says you're not wealthy enough to give them large portions. then it means sign of respect to the guest, also wanting them to have a good opinion of you. So also they may think you can't afford to buy food. Yes, if you serve them small portions. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So these are just a few examples of some of our socio-cultural factors that influence the way we eat. And we are just talking about portion sizes. So do you see why it's so difficult for us to change some of these mistakes? Because these things are ingrained in our norms, our social norms, and our cultural norms. We've been programmed in a certain way, just like what you are telling me today, that food has to be served. As a guest, you have to serve the guest a certain kind of portion. Otherwise, you are not respectful. You are not, you don't want them in your house. It's all these, I don't want to say ridiculous, but, there was a time I was asking, so this was just a conversation I was having with a group of friends. I was in Ghana. And it was around the time that we were sharing our portion sizes. So we just decided, because these were researchers, nutrition researchers, and I was picking their brains on portion sizes again. So people, this is another side to some of these reasons. Someone said, back in the days in Ghana, and people who are from Ghana would know this history, early 80s, there was this famine in Ghana. So people were starving and couldn't get food to eat. And so this is just, we'll call this anecdotal evidence because it's based on someone's view or perception. So this person says, people starved for a long time. And so when things started getting back to normal, then people just decided that, you don't know when you're not going to get food within the day, so just heap up your plate. Eat more than enough, because you don't know, you might not have anything to eat in the evening or the next day. So once that opportunity is there, or you don't know when the next famine is going to be, so when that opportunity is there, just eat. And I think that also sounds really sensible. Sounds like a good reason at the time, because you don't know when your next meal is going to come from. So indeed, once you have something to eat, you just eat as much as you can. So these are a few examples of the cultural factors that influence our diet. Now I want to move on to something else. Yes, they might be interrelated. We already talked about some of the social factors. So everything that has to do with expectations of visitors, hospitalization, all of that can be described as social factors, but also cultural factors. Now, what did I write for social factors? I touched on this a bit last week. So certain foods, depending on where you come from, tend to be marked as status foods. Certain foods are linked to social position. Can you think of some examples? What are some of the foods that are linked with being wealthy? What are some of the foods that are linked with not being wealthy? So we finished with portion sizes. Let's move on to the kinds of foods we eat as well. Let's see.
Yeah,
salmon,
so,
beef, linked with what?
Beef, yeah. I was actually going to say salmon too. So I think back in Nigeria, there's salmon, there's chicken, even if it was quite common, but for some families, yeah, there's chicken. Then there's a particular type of fish. So mackerel was kind of mackerel or Titus, or I can't however they call it, was kind of like the popular fish. So when you buy that fish, some families, some people will say it's a poor fish. Anybody can afford that. Anybody can buy that. So yeah, with the mackerel fish. But then there's this particular fish they used to call medusa. That fish was the fish for like the big people because it was quite expensive. It was more pricey and things like that. Then also there is there's snails for people who eat snails. So not everyone can afford snails. So not all families, not everyone got snails. And then also people who kill, there's a very popular one growing up is chicken gizzard. So chicken gizzard was only meant for the head of the family. only the father can have chicken gizzard. No one else in the family can have chicken gizzard. And then you only get chicken gizzard on special occasions, probably Christmas, when they've slaughtered the chicken. And even at that, it's only the head of the family that can have chicken gizzard. There were so many others.
So many of those ones.
Yeah.
There's so many of those examples. Thank you. Thank you for those examples. So those were associated with high status. Can you think of any foods that are associated with being poor? Within our communities, can you think of any foods that are Gary? Thank you. Yes, Gary. What else? Gary. Beans. I was waiting for the beans. A lot of the times people associate beans with poverty, and I have no idea why that's the case. I just don't know why people associate beans with poverty. Any other examples? Now, knowing what we know now, does it really matter, whether it's seen as rich man's food or poor man's? So with regards to the fish you mentioned, if it's an oily fish and there's a specific oily fish that's meant for rich people, and there's another oily fish that is associated with being poor, does it matter?
It doesn't.
Does it matter?
It doesn't, honestly. In fact, in my opinion, based on the nutritional value, mackerel is even more highly nutritious than any other type of fish, basically mackerel and salmon. So if as a rich man you're saying you don't want to have mackerel, you're basically starving yourself of certain nutritional values here.
So the point I want to make with these norms, societal norms, potatoes, yes, that's a good example. That's another good example. So I don't know whether, is this associated with poverty? Let me just clarify. Is it associated with being poor or being rich? Oh, the question was poverty, so this is still associated with that one, I want to believe. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And then at the end of the day, you hear people saying, I can't eat healthy because healthy eating is expensive.
Yes.
We do know what healthy eating is, having a variety from all the 5 food groups. So I know lots of Ghanaians will not eat potatoes because, they prefer yam. And then at the end of the day, if you're saying healthy eating is expensive, potatoes are cheaper, beans are cheaper, So these are some of the things I want us to reflect on. Some foods that are classed as rich people's food can give you health problems. Absolutely. Because they are only
meant to be eaten as a treat.
As a treat.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So those supposed rich men associated foods, a lot of the times are the ones that are associated with, all these preventable diseases we talk about. But because we see it as a status food, everyone thrives to have that, So as soon as people are in a better position financially, which refers to a lot of African immigrants, because they come here and then they're able to, they get jobs, and so they are better off than they were before, then they tend to consume these supposedly high status foods in excess. And that is because of the social norms, the perceptions, our food beliefs around all of these foods.
Yeah.
Okay. What is my next example? And please feel free to also put anything in the chat box. Today we are talking about socio-cultural influences. We are highlighting those factors, talking about giving examples, and then we will look at ways to overcome these challenges. It's not easy. Once you are programmed in a certain way, it is not easy to overcome this, but we will try and suggest some few ways. Another thing I tend to see within the community or hear about has to do with foods described as heavy and light foods. There's that misconception that breakfast needs to be light and dinner has to be something heavy. Have you heard that, Sylvia? The breakfast.
I've heard it in the opposite way, actually.
Right.
So I've heard it as your breakfast needs to be heavy. Like they say it as, when you're having breakfast, have breakfast like a king, have lots of varieties and things like that.
But is that this practically, is that what you see amongst Nigerian immigrants? Because even though people say that, personally growing up, a lot of the times our breakfast will be tea and bread, because that's seen as light. People will tell you if I eat heavy, I might sleep, so some people, yes. But a lot of people I know prefer to eat what they describe as a light meal in the morning, because you've just woken up and so you're breaking your fast. And that tends to, again, based on the people that I studied, that tends to a lot of the times be, bread, tea. It's very common in Ghana. Bread and tea and bread and margarine, or something relatively lighter.
Something really light, maybe just cereal or something.
Again, what is the issue with that? If people are having their rice bowls and all of that, that's okay. But for people who insist or who think that breakfast has to be, and I'll give a typical example based on the research that I did, it has to be tea and bread. What's the problem with that? Tea, bread, and margarine. Anybody from the chat box, what's the issue with having tea, bread, and margarine as your breakfast?
Can I just raise my hand?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, the problem with bread and the margarine, and because of the carbohydrate and then the butter you put in on it, that's what I think is that's not good, really. Because when you compare the bread we eat, the African bread, and then the slice of toast, there's a difference there. Because if it's apart from being wheat, whole meal bread, and it's a slice, but African bread is a chunk. They take a chunk of it and they splatter it with butter, so it's not good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Christine is laughing. So not healthy, but convenient. I like the convenience. Yes, it is indeed convenient. It's not a balanced plate. Yes, there's a lot of sugar in the African breads too. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. Anyone else can anyone else think about what else the problem is with that? So when we say it's not healthy, specifically things we've spoken about here, can anyone think about what does that mean? If your breakfast is just bread and tea, what is the implications of that on your 5 a day? I think I talked about that. You are definitely not having your 5 a day.
Thank you.
A lot of us eat 2 or 3 times a day. So if your breakfast is bread and tea, you're indirect introduced as a norm from childhood, I think. Yes, that's the point I was making. It is introduced. We all grew up like that. Well, most of us, it's bread and tea, and so it becomes part of us. We are not having a 5 a day already, because most of us eat 2 or 3 times a day. So if your breakfast is bread and tea, where are the other stuff we're talking about? And we all know what healthy eating is. Now, in addition to that, bread and tea, bread is refined carbs, and that is why a lot of people within the day, within two hours, it's gone. It's gone. And so you have cravings, and because it is cravings in between breakfast and lunch, people tend to just have snacks. A lot of us will not snack on healthy snacks. Okay, so these are some of the things that contribute to unhealthy eating habits, because if you're at work between breakfast and lunch, most people will snack on unhealthy stuff. And so here we always tell people, have the proper meal. What is a proper meal? Proteins, vegetables, your staples is what we recommend, especially for our children. Those refined cereals, cornflakes, and milk alone, within 1-2 hours, it has digested. Your children would already start, glucose level is low. They will not be concentrating properly, especially proteins. We need to give our children proteins in the morning, and proteins doesn't have to be eggs alone, because a lot of people, when they think about proteins for breakfast, they are thinking about eggs. And some
Just
people will say,
eggs,
I don't
yeah.
like eggs. And then you can't eat egg every day because you get tired of it. No, proteins doesn't have to be just eggs. There's a variety of proteins you can choose from. And again, people link fish, meat, beans, and all those other proteins only with lunch and dinner. And so they don't think about that when you're thinking about breakfast. You can have any of those. Have a portion of protein with your breakfast if you're having breakfast. Unless you are doing intermittent fasting, you're fasting, that is different. But if you're having your breakfast, please, yes, your cheese, yes, your chicken, your fish, thank you, Martha, all of that would help for you to have a healthy eating habit. So that idea of a light food in the morning, it's something that we have just been programmed to believe, that you need something light in the morning. Some people still say, we all have different sensory and specific mechanisms. Thank you, Victory. Some people say when I have what we perceive as heavy food in the morning, I tend to feel sleepy and lethargic. So work on the portions. Work on the portions. I'm not telling you to have fufu in the morning. No, if that's going to disturb you, but work on the portions. It could be something else. Even when you're having your whole meal cereal, you can have your cornflakes, but have a bit of cornflakes, but have some proteins there, because that will take you during the day for a couple of hours.
Yeah, okay. I actually also used to struggle with that at first, because I never used to include that much protein in my breakfast. Sometimes I just go without having protein. But then when I started doing it, I realized that it did actually take me for like longer time during the day.
It will take you for longer. And Eyabo says there's beans and rice is usually morning meal back in Nigeria. I tend to this time I said I was going to write a book called Sankofa. And if you're a Ghanaian, it means let's go back to our roots. You'd realize that back in the days, our grandmothers and grandfathers, they were not taking tea and bread for breakfast. They were having what you are talking about, the beans and the rice. They were having a proper meal. Exactly. Yes, I'm always like, I think we should go back to our roots to pick the healthy eating habits. Of course, there would be some unhealthy ones as well. No, let's not pick the unhealthy ones, but let's go back and pick the healthy ones. So again, you can have anything for breakfast. I'm not saying you cannot have your tea. I'm just saying make it a complete meal. So if you want to have tea, you want to have your bread, please try and have some vegetables somewhere, have some proteins. That makes it a complete meal. Okay. What else? How about portions? Yes, indeed, portions. Yes. And that was the first challenge we identified, that our biggest problem as a community is our portions. Yes. So we've kind of discussed that, and so we're going to have look for ways and means to work on the portions. And we also looked at why people are having big portions, because before you do something about it, you have to think about what is causing it, the whys. Yes, and so we would look at how we can work on the portions as well. Another example that is linked with our culture and our social norms. So, and I think I've shared this before. When we did our intervention and we're sharing the foods we're eating, yes, Christine says some food intolerances and allergies restrict some members of my family. And that is very legit, So yes, and it's not, you would definitely have some people who would not be able to eat certain things. But even having said that, and that's why when we do some of these sessions, we provide a variety. So if you're looking at proteins, we'll give you the different examples of protein foods, different examples of carbohydrates. So if you don't eat one specific thing, you still will be eat something else to meet, those nutrient requirements. So that is very legitimate. And by all means, if you have intolerances or allergies, then you have to avoid certain foods, but just make sure you are not causing any nutrient deficiencies by omitting a lot of things. You just have to look for the other foods that can provide you with those specific nutrients. Thank you. Now, my other example has to do with, do I have pictures to show? So the way, this time not portion size, but the way we combine the foods. So I'll give you Ghanaian examples. So in Ghana, we have something called red, so gari and beans and plantain. Do you have some foods that are eaten in a specific way? So this particular staple is eaten with this particular sauce in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Sylvia, I'll be surprised. Yes,
we do. We definitely do. We have oats and bread.
Yeah.
And then you have some people, although some people are against it, but you have some people who also have pap, which is cornmeal, pap and bread.
Yeah.
Basically, yes. And
basically,
and then there's the beans and plantain.
There's a beans and plantain.
There's the rice and beans
combination.
There's the beans and gari. So we have all of that.
Okay, so linking that. Yes, other examples, please.
I just wanted to help her out. The pap
yes.
also with akara.
Yes.
I'm mama.
Moi.
And moi.
Yes.
Yam and egg. Okay, so there are certain specific, like in Ghana, we also have kenke, pepper, and fish. Now, because that is how we've been programmed, this is how we eat kenke. It's kenke. And I know this because personally, when I was growing up, sometimes people will add okra to kenke and pepper. And what is that doing to it? Just making it healthier, but I wouldn't eat it because, I didn't like it, because in my house, if you're eating kenke, you eat kenke and pepper. And there's so many people like that, because kenke is always eaten with pepper, you don't feel like if you add any vegetables to it, it just changes it for you. It's like it just exactly, So this is one of some of the social culture, just the way, and it links back to that point I made about cultural identity. So when you eat in a certain way, people eat banku and a specific sauce, then that would show that you come from this part of the country, or you come from this, so that is your identity. And so you're programmed like that, and you cannot think outside of that. That is all you know. So even though you do know that I need my plate to have half of the plate to be my vegetable soup or sauce, that is not how it's eaten, because plantain is always eaten with gari. And so you cannot think about adding sliced lettuce.
Yeah. You can't.
Do you see what I mean by our cultural identity, the social factors, and our norms that influence the way we eat?
Yeah.
So there is absolutely nothing wrong with our African foods. Everything we have can be made healthier. It is just our values, our beliefs, our norms that surround us, that influence our attitudes, our habits, our behaviors, that have programmed us from childhood, that limits us, that prevents us from doing the right thing, that stops us, that makes us make all those dietary mistakes that we're talking about. Yeah, similar in the Caribbean, cornmeal, porridge, and bread. I'm sure we can think of so many examples, and there will be people who will struggle to change that.
Yeah.
There'll be people who struggle to have that with anything else, anything a bit healthier, or add something to it, just change it a bit to make it healthier, only because they are just used to that. No other reason.
True.
No other reason.
Yeah, like for me, I struggled with oats and bread, because growing up, like that's what I always had, oats and bread, but then I struggled with it a lot. So nowadays I rather just take just oats and a piece of fruit and things like that. I don't have it with bread.
So how can you make oats and bread healthier if you didn't want if that's not just to you? Because a lot of us, it's not to you, Sylvia. We've talked about oats and bread here before. So you're having oats and bread in the morning. How can you make oats and bread healthier for you to make it a complete meal, so it's not double carbs?
So basically, most times I tend to add fruits to it. And then in adding fruits, I'm very wary of bananas. Oats and bananas.
Okay.
That's another thing. So instead of I was also used to adding bananas, so I had to stop doing that. So instead, I have oats with probably fruits that like grapes or with kiwi, and then I add the protein, maybe chicken or fish, or fry some eggs by the side. Yeah, so avocado. And then there's something I just started doing: peanut butter. Peanut butter is also a very rich source of protein. So I just add 1 spoon or a heap of peanut butter to the oats. If I don't have that strength to probably fry egg or boil egg or something, I just add a scoop of peanut butter to it.
How do we manage this generation of children that really don't appreciate our cultural foods? Let me throw, because I did say this was a discussion, and let me throw this back to the group, please. Let me hear your thoughts from one of our so Dr. Bayu says, yes, it's a question to everyone, not to me. What do people think? How do we manage this generation of children that really don't appreciate our cultural foods? And then Zakia says, I would add blueberries or some nuts to oats.
Yeah.
And nuts really can be very filling.
Very
so
filling,
yeah, that's
yes.
also someone said that's one another session. No, I would want to hear people's thoughts. Make it colorful. Yeah, people are coming up with suggestions. Make it colorful.
Yeah, I support make it colorful. I also support make it sweet. As a child, we all have sweet too, but
what do you mean by sweet?
No, please. Yeah, that's the thing. Make it sweet in a healthy way. So if you're making salads for your kids, you could probably add something sweet to it, maybe a fruit. Okay. You can add a fruit to it. Let's think of a cultural food.
But salad, exactly. I was going to say salad is not our cultural
food. It's not. Yeah, it's not cultural. Yeah.
Whilst you think about that, Zakia says for children, we could involve them during the cooking process.
Yes,
indeed,
that's another way.
The sift food can be molded in animal-shaped molds. See? Yeah. Jadida, what is this SIFT? What's that? Do you mean the stiff foods or the staple?
The soft food.
Oh, the soft foods.
Okay.
The soft foods can be molded into animal-shaped molds. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, children like that. There was a time that, do you remember when we brought some community members to share their healthy eating practices? There was someone who said that was how she did her stuff, always molded it into, fun-shaped. She shaped it into some stuff that the children were just excited about, and that helped them. Yeah, but yes, let me go back to what I don't know whether it was Daniel, or Shekinah, who suggested that that's a topic for another day. I agree with you. I think we should just do a special session for children. Yes, so we will do that in the coming weeks. Right. So going back to where we were before we start with the tips. I've talked about some of these socio-cultural norms. Can anyone think of anything else that I haven't mentioned? So that, oh yes, one important one that I wrote down is our perception of foods that are not cultural. So foods that are not from within our community. How do you perceive sandwiches, finger foods?
I won't be able to answer this because
okay, let me ask in the chat. Let me hear what others have to say. So when you finger foods, so all these, especially when it's, sometimes at work, they give us these sandwiches when we have a meeting, really small shaped sandwiches. Would you consider that as a meal? Do people see those things as meals? And there's all these really small, let's see what people think. Kind of poisonous.
Doctor says it's kind of poisonous.
Okay. Yes. What do you mean? You mean it's poisonous when you say yes, it is? Do you mean it's poisonous?
No, actually, what are you saying? But I agree, it can be very poisonous because before you know it, you have taken 5, 6.
That's the point I was coming to. I hardly buy sandwich except I make it myself. Yes, but needs lots of choices. Okay. So the point I wanted to make, and this is based on the research that I did, a lot of people from our community, we don't view those foods as real foods. So all of those, I can't remember their names. Every meeting, they're bringing us all these sandwiches and all those. So no matter how much of that you have, it is not real food to you. People see that as snacks. So sandwich is a complete meal. When you are having bread with chicken, or depending on what is in there, could be a complete meal. But our foods tend to be, swallow. Some people say swallow or staple. So when it's a sandwich or, it's something, we don't have finger foods. So anything that is like that, that's why I like the point about it being poisonous. Before you know it, people would have just, eaten so much, and that really contributes to weight gain, not cultural to me. So usually I have to eat something filling afterwards. That's the point I wanted. Exactly. So because it is not really part of our culture, no matter how many we eat or how much we consume, we still need something else. So like today at work, there was a meeting and, that was served. If I had that and I still sent lunch, I'll still go on. A lot of us do that because it's not known to us. That is not how we eat. So then we don't perceive these as real foods. And afterwards, we go back and consume our foods. So do you see, this is not exhaustive, but do you see the issues or the socio-cultural factors that are influencing our dietary behaviors? Yeah? Okay. Now let's go on to some of the things we can do, because otherwise time will be up and I wouldn't have gone through the and so what of my presentation. I'm just going to share a slide now. Let's see. Oh, I also forgot, so this is, like I always say, I tend to use a lot of Ghanaian examples. So this is light soup and fufu. Light soup is it's light. I think it's what Nigerians call pepper soup, and it's a lot of Ghanaians like this, that's how it's supposed to be eaten. So people will not add any vegetables to it. There's always tomato, onion, but, to make it nutrient dense, we could do something and add a bit more vegetable, but then it doesn't become light soup anymore.
Yeah, it won't.
It doesn't become pepper soup anymore. So if you're someone who always has to have light soup or pepper soup for dinner, you won't add any vegetables in there, because then it changes it from light soup to pepper soup. But it's just a recipe someone within the community developed, and then you've eaten that for years and you've become used to it. So you can't change it and add something to it. It's not like anyone is marking or saying that, you're not being assessed against any criteria. What you need to do is assess it against your own healthy eating criteria. So your pepper soup or your light soup, is it providing you with the nutrients you require for the day? Because most of us don't like salads. So if we don't want to eat the salad, it's okay. There are other ways of having your vegetables or your other nutrients. But how are you going to incorporate that when you are stuck to having food in a certain way? It has to be light soup, so I can't have any more vegetables. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is you. I took this in Tokumbo's house when we went for a party. Yeah. So yes, we are still having our African foods, but yes, you can have your vegetables there, have your protein. Okay, so how can we make things right? In the last few minutes, I'm just going to talk about some of the things we can do. All of us need to ask ourselves, I call it, what is your why? We know eating is just like one of your basic, food is a basic need. But beyond just filling you up, what else do you want food to do for you? After all the education we've had over the years, we do know how much. Last week, I showed some statistics about how much diet influences diseases. So we do know, we have the numbers. So knowing this, what do we want to do about it? Do we just want to eat just because we need to live? Or we want food to do more than living? That is not for me to answer. This is what we all need to ask ourselves. And that's where the motivation will come for us to be able to make changes. What is your why? Are we eating to be able to get all the nutrients that the body requires in order to prevent diseases, or we are just eating because we need to eat. What does it mean for our health? Once we sit down to reflect on these things, then we can start challenging some of these norms. Challenging the norms doesn't mean going to someone's house and telling the person, no, your pepper soup must have spinach. No. Challenge the norm in your own house. Yes, we've eaten oats and bread for years. You know what you know now, that eating oats and bread doesn't help. So what do you want to do? How are you going to challenge it in your own household? Do you want to start having oats and nuts instead of oats and bread? Do you want to have a protein? Try and introduce a protein in your breakfast so that you can take out the bread the days you're having oats, because you're already having lots of carbohydrates from there. So how are you going to challenge these norms? So a few steps. Make one small change. I started by saying that dietary behaviors are complex, one of the most complex behaviors, because it is influenced by so many factors. And what we did today is just, one group of factors, socio-cultural norms. There are so many other factors that influence diet. So it is not easy to change dietary behaviors. No. If I'm making it seem like it's easy, please hear it now. It is not easy. So we don't expect people to be able to just, come from 0 or from 1 to 10. It doesn't happen. Even if that happens, it's not sustainable. If all of a sudden you see someone eating, reducing their portion sizes and having vegetables, breakfast, lunch, dinner, I can assure you that it's not sustainable. People will stop because that is not what they have been used to all these years. So just focus on one thing at a time. I always say it can be something as little as, Sylvia, what do you want to change? Now, let me ask in the chat. What are people's... do we have some comments? Let's see.
Yes, okay. We do. We have some comments in the chat. So Martha says we need to eat more
mindfully. Yes.
And Iyabo says we want food to get all the necessary nutrients and so as to live healthy and well.
So what will be that small change you would want to do towards that? Iyabo, or to anybody else, anyone who wants to eat to be able to get all the nutrients. What is the first thing you are going to do from this talk? What can you do? One small change you can effect for your family. Just one small change. Last week, we talked about some of the mistakes. So what are we going to do to help our families? Just one small change that you think you can introduce. Or we are not ready to make the changes. Start adding at least one vegetable to my meal. You might not be able to add it to every meal, which is fine, as long as you are adding some vegetables. Even if it's 2 meals a day, you make sure that you do it every day, and then gradually you can add another to it. But it just has to start with one. And that is why I wanted us to start by identifying the challenges, which we did last week. We talked about salt, and I gave some examples. I talked about, we learned from some of our people who were on the call that they don't add salt to their staples. Someone said on the call, I don't add salt to rice. Excuse me. How many of us don't add salt to rice? A lot of us do. So that could be just a small change you can introduce. Not adding salt to your rice because you do have salt in your stew and your soup. Not adding salt to your yam because you do have salt in something else. And yes, when you start, it might taste a bit funny, but within 3 weeks, you can get used to rice without salt. And you will be surprised how much that can impact on your health. Okay, so once you make that small change, remember, I emphasize on the small because these behaviors are so ingrained in our lives that it is difficult to change. We acknowledge that. We do know that nutrition education is not enough because of the way we've grown. And that's why I emphasize on just one little change. Now, once you've managed to get that change, then you add another one to it. Again, another small change. And be consistent. So if you are trying to introduce proteins in your breakfast, you need to make sure that every breakfast you have one protein or the other, maybe egg, fish, anything, beans, be consistent. So every morning, make sure you have something with a small portion of protein. Continue, be consistent with that. Be patient. That works for people who are trying to lose weight, people who are trying to make a total lifestyle change. After a month or so, they just want to see that they're losing weight. When you're making you're making lifestyle changes, it takes a while. Be patient, trust the process. Believe that you are doing something right, and so you would see them. Even if you don't see the results, know that internally, Dr. Alice used to say, your organs will be happy, even if you are not happy with the changes. And then finally, just know that it's all about moderation. Healthy eating is about moderation. You do not have to go on a diet. You do not have to change your African foods or Caribbean foods to just eat Western foods, to just eat salads. No, you do not have to give up on your favorite foods. You still can eat your favorite foods and have a healthy lifestyle or a healthy diet. And finally, if you are still struggling, please speak to an expert. Registered nutritionists, registered dietitians are there for a reason. So please reach out, speak to some of these experts, and they will support you. Okay? And finally, you can't go back and change the beginning, remember, but you can start where you are and change the ending. This is relevant to the fact that a lot of the stuff we do because this is how we grew up. We can't change that. Yeah. That's how our society has programmed us. But you can start where you are and change the ending. We can't make changes now. It is not too late. So what do you want to say about your health status when you retire? Or those of us who intend to go back home when we retire and go back to Africa? The choice is ours to make. Thank you very much. I'm sure I've taken all the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hibbah. Thank you. That was a very lovely discussion. For one, I enjoyed it. And I think the major take-home message for me is be consistent. Consistency is the key. So even if you're adding something in, making that one small change gradually, be consistent with that change. It's one thing to do the change, it's another thing to be consistent with it. Thank you so much, Dr. Hibbah. Does anyone have any other question just before we hand over to Orlando? Anything you'd like to clarify concerning your dietary challenges or anything at all you're facing concerning your diet? Okay, lovely. Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. We will see you next week. We'll come up with a very beautiful topic next week. So we'll see you next week for another session.
Thank you, Doctor. That's a wonderful,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very interactive. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hibbah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. Please don't go. Stay on.
Yeah, you have to stay on because we're going to hand over to Orlando. So I'm just going to hand over to Orlando. Orlando.
Yeah.
We're straight on.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, though.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia, for that introduction. Thank you, Dr. Hibbah, for facilitating that great, amazing seminar. So, like Sylvia said, I hope everybody's staying on for the exercise portion of tonight's session. So as promised, we start our 4-week block of exercise. So we learn some combos, burn some calories, have a lot of fun. So for today's session, you're going to need plenty of water. And today's session, you'll need a mat as well. All right, so if you have a mat or a cushion or anything handy, you can bring those in. Remember, if you want to make the combination we do tonight a little bit more challenging, then you can bring in some light dumbbells, just really light. So maybe 1 kg, 2 kg dumbbells, just to enhance the punches and to activate some of the punching muscles. All right, so let's start off with warm up. Let's get straight into it. So what we're going to do a 30-second shallow skip. Or if you have a skipping rope in the space, you can actually use a skipping rope if you want to. Let's get these tunes ready. So let's get into a 30-second shallow skip in 3, 2, 1, go. right, people. Let's just get that blood flowing. Ten seconds. 3, 2, 1. Uppercuts now. Uppercuts. Both sides. I'm going, my people. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Star jumps to the front. Let's go. Keep that going, people. Halfway now. 3, 2, 1. Next one. Let's go. 1, 2. So you jab and you cross. Let's go. Again, keep it nice and light. Still warming up. Keep that going, people. 3, 2, 1. Okay, take a quick 20-second break. Couple of sips of water, and then we're back in. All right, first one, we'll move back. Take 2 shuffles forward. I need a jab, cross, hook, 2 shuffles backwards. Right, so 2 forward, 1, 2, 3, 2 back. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Again, keep it nice and light. Keep that going, people. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Next one. Squat down. Diagonal punch. Open up the hips. Open up the hips. Open up the obliques. Let's go. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back to your uppercuts now. Let's see some speed now. So really roll them shoulders. Keep that going, people. We're feeling nice and warm now. 3, 2, 1. Last one. Squat and reach. Squat down. Open up, nice and tall. Keep that going, people. Keep that going. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Time, people. Quick 20-second water water break, and then we're going to get into round number 1. Well done. Okay, people, last few sips of water, back to your spaces. All right, so as normal, each round we do tonight will be over 3 minutes. So remember to try and push yourself as hard as you can go, but don't be afraid to take regular breaks. So if we're in a combination round and you want to take a quick break to get your breath back, take that breath and boom, straight back into the combo. All right, so round number 1, nice and easy. It's going to be a combo round. All right, so for the first 60 seconds, we're just going to throw out our jab, cross, okay, for 4. We're looking for strength, we're looking for power. So in your guard, see right-handed here. Remember our mirror image, left-handed here. So, jab, cross, nice and hard. 1 or 2 in the same place. Jab, cross. Change direction. Jab, cross. That's your first 60 seconds, guys, okay? Let's get busy. Let's get busy now. Let's get ready. Take these tunes back. All right, to your spaces, people. Get ready. Jab, cross. Let's go on the drop. 3, 2, 1, go. Keep going, people. Halfway. "15 seconds, people. Keep punching. Last 5, 2, 1. Okay. Let's add to it now. So, after that last cross, I need 10 uppercuts as quick as you can. Right, again in your guard. 4 hard, 10 for speed. Let's go. Second minute. 3, 2, 1. Put it together now. Let's go. Yeah, go ahead, people. And that's halfway. Keep going. "15 seconds. Two, 1. Okay, 3rd minute coming up. So now, after that last uppercut, throw 10 straights for speed. Watch me. So 4 nice and hard, 10 for speed, 10 for speed. Then start again. 4 hard, 10, 10. Let's go, last minute. 3, 2, 1. Put it all together now, let's go. seconds left. We'll keep it going. Ten seconds. Whoa, that time, people. Back to your corners. Get a quick water break. 30 seconds. Well done. "15 seconds, people, and we're back in the ring." Okay, people listening, time to get even sweatier now. All right, so next round we've got cardio conditioning round. All right, so the combination and the exercise will stay the same throughout the 3-minute round. So what we'll do is here, in our guard, 10 straights for speed, 10 uppercuts for speed, 10 above the head for speed. All right, we're going to go there for 30 seconds. So keep cycling through 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. From there, we're going to go for a run for 30 seconds. All right, so use those arms, knees up, find a nice pace, and hold that pace for 30 seconds. From there, we go straight back into the combo. All right, so 10, 10, 10, 30 seconds, and then we're running for 30 seconds. And that process will repeat 3 times. All right, let's go, people. Let's get into this round now. Cardio and conditioning. All right, to your spaces now. Get ready. Start with the combination in 3, 2, 1. 10, 10, 10. Go. Go, people. We're going to run in 3, 2, 1, run. Knees up. Keep going, people. 10 seconds. Three, 2, 1. Back to your combo. Running 3, 2, 1. Get to running. Keep that going, people. 10 seconds. Back to your combo in 3, 2, 1. Back to your combo. seconds. 3, 2, 1. Last one, go. Keep that going. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And rest, my people. 30-second water break. 2 rounds down. Ten seconds, people. All right, people listening. So round number 3. We've done this boxing before. You know, when I say it's a pyramid round, it's no joke. All right, so we've got pyramid round next. We're gonna focus on the legs. All right, so combinations with legs. So again, combo will stay the same. Exercise will stay the same. We're gonna do in your guard. I need a jab, cross, uppercut, cross. From there, we'll do 2 squats. 2 squats, nice and sharp. Again, from there, we're gonna do that combo again. Uppercut, cross, we're gonna do it twice. So that's 2. Then we go 4 squats. All right, then 3 combos. That's 1, 2, 3, and then 6 squats. All right, so multiply the squats. All right, we're gonna do that up to 5, and then we start back at 1. All right, so 1 combo, 2 squats, 2 combos, 4 squats, 3 combos, 6 squats, 4 combos, 8 squats, 5 combos, 10 squats. Good maths. Decent. All right, so we'll do that over the 3-minute round, people. All right, let's get busy now. Pyramid round with the legs. So start with your combo. In 3, 2, 1, go. 2 squats. 2 combos now. 4 squats. 3 combos now. 1, 2, 3, 6 squats. 4 combos now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 squats. 5 combos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 squats. You start back at 1. Keep it going, people. Just over a minute left. Keep it going. Come on. Keep it going, people. 30 seconds. Last 15. Four, 3, 2, 1. That's time, my people. Quick rest break. Get some water. We have one more round to go. Bring your mats in now for the last round. We are hitting the abs. Gonna get those abs ready for the summer. 6-pack season. All right, people listening, last round coming up. So for this round here, it's going to be boxing mixed with abs. All right, so the combination will stay the same, but the exercise will change. I'm only going to tell you the first round. All right, so in your guard, combo stays the same. We're looking for strength, we're looking for power. So double jab, so jab out, bring it back halfway, snap again. Cross, watch again. Double jab, cross. Watch from this angle. Double jab, cross. We're going to stay there for 30 seconds. From there, first move is a forearm plank. Over here. See me? Yep. Forearm plank. So shoulders nice and strong. We're keeping our body nice and flat. We don't want to be in the air like this. We don't want to be too low where we cave in the lower back. So nice and flat. Keep your bum nice and engaged. Keep your stomach nice and engaged. 30 seconds. And then we go straight back into our combo. Okay? Last round, people. Let's do it now. Last round. So start with that jab, jab, cross. Okay, let's get ready now, people. Let's go in 3, 2, 1. Give me 30 seconds. Keep that going.
AKR produced.
3, 2, 1. Down into your plank. Oh, stay nice and strong. 10 seconds.
AKR produced.
3, 2, 1. Back to your combo. Keep that going, people. 10 seconds.
AKR produced.
2, 1. Next one, down on your bums. Full sit-ups. So here. Wow. Let's go.
AKR produced.
Let's go, people. Keep that going. 2 more. Back to you, combo. Keep that going. 10 seconds. 2, 1. Last move. We've got stomach crunches. Down here. Legs up. Elbows to knees. Let's go.
I don't know that.
Good people. 3, 2,
AKR produced.
and time, people. Well done. Big well done. All right, back to your corners. 15-second water break, and then we will stretch off. Well done.
AKR produced.
All right, people, back to your spaces. Let's cool down. Let's stretch off. So, start off with, let's go neck side to side. All right, front and back. Nice and gentle. Ear to shoulder. Okay, start on either side. Half moons with the arm. Change sides. Okay, big hip rotations. Change direction. Front to back. Okay, last one. Cross their feet over like so. Try and touch your toes. Change legs. Woo. Come up nice and slow. Shake it off. And that's time, people. Well done. Well done. Shekinah, you in the house? Before. You there, Shekinah?
Yeah, hi, Orlando. Sorry about that. Yeah, thank you for that session, Orlando.
Daniel.
And thank you to everyone else. If you want to put in the chat box how you found that session, oh God, the asked to be spotlighted. Yeah, just enter in the chat box how you found that session. if you have any questions for Orlando about the exercises or anything fitness in general, feel free. I believe you said we're going to be doing 4 weeks of this. So next week, can you just
so it's going to be a 4-week block of exercise or boxercise, should I say? And this is week number 1. Yeah, you are correct, Daniel. Did you get involved today?
Yeah. But I was looking forward to the Pilates because in December you were like, we're going straight into Pilates. But it's fine. That's after the box.
Don't worry, that's 3. You've only got to wait 3 more weeks, or should I say 4 more weeks.
I won't be here though.
We'll get you as flexible. We'll get you as flexible as possible.
Okay. Nah, I'm good. I think I'm flexible enough for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Any other things to say to the people in Orlando from your end? Hello.
Any more questions, people? If not, you can always reach me on my Instagram. You can DM me. It's all one word, Orlando Grant PT. If you want any advice or you want to see any of my training videos or whatnot, yeah, feel free to jump on there. Also on Facebook, Orlando Grant Personal Trainer. So you can jump on Facebook and have a look on there as well. Yeah, thanks to CAHN for putting that in a group chat. So yeah, if you want to reach out and find out anything more health, fitness, nutrition-wise, just reach out. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Cool. Thanks, Orlando. Yeah, and once again, we'll see you all next week, Tuesday, for another Healthy Hearts session. Bring someone else along. Tell them about this wonderful, engaging talks we have every Tuesday. And if you want, we also have health hours on Saturdays from 11 to 12:30 on YouTube, on Facebook at CAHN_UK. So yeah, with that, wish everyone a good night and see you next week.
Well done, people. Wow, well done, people. See you later.